Hey, so this question is largely about the launch screen of the app. And I know this is going to go against some of the things that we've previously discussed. Before we sort of said that the human interface guidelines state that you have to have a launch image, and it's just sort of a static representation of what the app looks like when it's empty. And it is true that the human interface guidelines do state that, but it's a little bit BS too because tons of apps don't do it that way, and literally every app I've probably ever worked on that's been serious has also not done it that way. And I'm going to show why and talk a little bit about why it matters and some of the flexibility that it gives us. So what I have here is a recording of an app that I built previously. I'm just going to play and let you see what the launch sequence looks like. Okay, so I'm going to kind of back through this. So what you can see is what we start out with in the first frame is basically a dead simple image. That's literally the first frame of the animation. This dead simple image is the static launch screen. You know, it's a ping file. The second that gets done, which is literally just a matter of how long the operating system takes to sort of resurrect the app, none of our code is actually executed by this point in time. It's just sort of, the operating system potentially bringing the app out of a freeze-dried state. This doesn't happen every time the app is launched. You'll notice this well with a lot of other apps out there. It's really just a matter of after rebooting, or if your app gets kicked out of memory, or you crash in the background or something like that. Um, and certainly after an app update. But what you're looking at right now is that static launch screen. What happens then is that the second the operating system is done loading the app, we essentially put an actual view in place, and that view starts with the exact same background image, so it's seamless, right? Like you're going from an image to an actual live view, but it looks exactly the same. There's a little bit of a sleight of hand. At that point in time, then we can actually do an animation, which looks kind of nice. And in addition to the animation, you probably see that we have, if I can back this scrubber up just right, having a hard time hitting just the right mark. You can see as I'm passing through that there's a spinner down at the bottom. It happens very quickly, but that allows the app to do some pre-flight data checks. Uh, the kind of the why this matters is that if we're going to have a login screen that's going to have dynamic text and dynamic images, like in an onboarding sequence, those are things that we have to pull across the wire, which means that they're not going to be available when the user, in the first time they launch the app, we have to go out and get that stuff. So unless we are okay with the user sort of looking at blank state until that stuff comes down, which is going to be dependent on network connection, we almost need to block with a loading screen and be able to kind of show a spinner. This also gives us the ability in the future, kind of a placeholder if we have to do data migrations and things like that in between versions, a place where we can kind of stop that at the front door and have it built into the UX. So again, this isn't something that happens every time the app is launched. It's only as necessary. It does sort of go against the human interface guidelines, but everybody's doing it, and I've never had any problems with Apple with this. It definitely gives us some flexibility um, for this first release and for future releases, but it would require some design. The reason I'm bringing this up now is that it's a front door kind of thing, and it will some of the architecture decisions we make about the app will hinge on whether or not we want to have this sort of upfront experience. So anyway, I just want to tee this up for some thoughts, and I don't need anything designed on this necessarily right up front. It's more just a matter of like, are we conceptually okay with having this kind of front door to the app? And then I can just sort of stub in some placeholder stuff around it, knowing that eventually we would have an experience potentially more like what I just showed here, um, as opposed to something that was more like just a static launch image. And if this needs more context, we can definitely jump in a real-time chat. Thanks.